When acquiring a company in Vietnam, foreign investors often choose between two structures: capital deals and asset deals. In an asset deal, the buyer acquires selected assets and business components, rather than taking over the entire company and its liabilities. This structure offers more control, but also presents unique legal risks. A properly conducted legal due diligence is essential to ensure that the assets being acquired are valid, transferable, and free of legal issues. In this video, we explore what legal due diligence covers in an asset deal in Vietnam, and how it protects your investment. The first area of legal due diligence focuses on operation licenses. The report verifies whether the seller has obtained all necessary licenses to conduct the business operations associated with the assets. It also determines whether these licenses can be transferred to the buyer or whether new licenses are required. In Vietnam, licenses are often tied to the legal entity, not the asset itself. Therefore, the buyer must assess whether regulatory approvals are needed to continue operations post-acquisition. Failure to secure the appropriate licensing can result in suspension of business activities or regulatory penalties. If the asset deal includes intellectual property such as trademarks, patents, designs, or trade secrets, the legal due diligence will verify ownership and validity. In many cases, IP is registered under the name of the selling entity and must be assigned to the buyer through formal procedures. The report will highlight whether the IP is currently valid, whether it is subject to any third-party claims, and what steps are needed to complete the transfer. Special attention is also given to whether the IP has been properly registered in Vietnam or abroad if relevant to the transaction. Asset deals may include transfer of key contracts, such as supply agreements, service contracts, or customer accounts. Legal due diligence reviews these contracts to determine whether they are transferable, whether they require third-party consent, and whether they contain any termination or exclusivity clauses that could be triggered by the transfer. Not all contracts can be automatically assigned. The report highlights legal risks associated with non-transferable contracts or contracts with change of control provisions, which may need to be renegotiated or excluded from the deal. If the asset deal includes land, buildings, or other real estate, the legal due diligence will verify land use rights, lease agreements, and ownership documentation. In Vietnam, land cannot be privately owned, but investors can acquire land use rights. The report assesses whether these rights are legally valid, whether the land is free of encumbrances, and whether it can be transferred under Vietnamese law. It also confirms that the land use purpose matches the buyer's intended use. If the property is leased, the lease contract is reviewed to check for transfer rights, remaining term, and termination risks. Legal due diligence also examines whether any of the assets are encumbered, meaning pledged, mortgaged, or used as collateral in existing financial arrangements. The report identifies whether the assets are free and clear or whether third-party consent is required to release them. Buyers need to confirm that they are not acquiring assets subject to undisclosed debt, liens, or other legal restrictions. This section protects the buyer from acquiring liabilities along with the assets. For asset-heavy businesses such as manufacturing, logistics, or energy, environmental compliance is critical. The legal due diligence checks whether the current operator holds valid environmental permits and whether there have been any violations or penalties. It assesses whether the site complies with Vietnamese environmental laws and whether the buyer will inherit any obligations or liabilities. This review helps avoid post-deal exposure to fines or forced shutdowns due to environmental issues. In asset deals, employees are not automatically transferred to the buyer unless specifically agreed. However, if the business being acquired includes core staff, legal due diligence reviews their employment status. The report checks for compliance with Vietnamese labor laws, pending disputes, and whether employee consents are needed for transfer. It also reviews contracts with key personnel to assess retention obligations or post-transfer risk. Labor continuity can be a major operational concern if not addressed early. The legal due diligence report for asset deals in Vietnam is based on documents provided by the seller. It does not include on-site inspections, financial due diligence, or valuation of assets. It focuses strictly on legal risks associated with the asset transfer. Where information is missing or unclear, the report will flag these as open issues requiring further clarification. buyers are advised to coordinate with financial and technical advisors for a full assessment of the target assets. The report concludes with a summary of material issues, categorized by legal severity. These may include non-transferable licenses, contracts requiring third-party consent, encumbered assets, unresolved environmental risks, or labor issues. Each finding includes a recommended legal solution, such as obtaining waivers, amending contracts, or restructuring the transaction. This summary helps buyers finalize negotiations with full knowledge of legal risks and necessary next steps. At LTS Law, we conduct legal due diligence for asset deals with precision and commercial focus. We provide clear, English-language reports designed for foreign investors and highlight only the issues that materially affect your deal. Our approach is solution-oriented, guiding you through risk areas and proposing legally sound strategies that align with your business goals. If you're planning to acquire assets in Vietnam, don't move forward without knowing the legal condition of what you're buying. Contact LTS Law or visit lts.com.vn to schedule a consultation. With the right legal team, you can close your asset deal with clarity, confidence, and complete legal compliance.